Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Khalil Doheny. I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Digital Niche Agency. Today, we have the team of Kribi Coffee. Team, how are you guys doing today?
Doing awesome.
Doing great.
Really well.
Doing really well.
Fantastic. I want to say Happy New Year to everyone who's attending the webinar today. It's been, a little bit since last time we all talked to each other. So Happy New Year to the team. Hope you guys had a great holiday season. And, I'm really excited to hear what you guys have in store for 2023. But before that, you guys want to give a quick introductions to yourselves?
Absolutely. I can start.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am Abby Brumfield. I'm the Director of Operations for Kribi Coffee. I've been with Kribi since May of 2021 when Jacques told me his story and his mission and managed to convince me to move from Chicago from Arizona. I work really close with Jacques and Kribi to see through all of the day-to-day operations for both all three of our storefronts now, as well as working with several of our wholesale customers. I came to Kribi with 5+ years of coffee experience working at Dutch Bros Coffee in the West Coast as both a barista and a shift lead, where I've helped open new shops and train baristas in all of the operations. That's me. I'll pass it on to Kribi from here.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar. So my name is Kribi Isaac. I have been with Kribi for almost a year now. But prior to Kribi, I have about 12 years experience in retail management. So my title is Chief Operating Officer. So like Abby mentioned, I work closely with her and Jacques to really just oversee business organization, policies, procedures, things like that. And also I'm heading up our franchise division, which we can talk about a little bit further in this webinar, but we'll be launching that at the end of Q1 of this year. So I will pass it on to Jeremiah.
Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Jeremiah Shallow. I am the creative director, brand strategist, and one of the owners of Kribi Coffee. I've been, part of Kribi from the beginning. Jacques Shallow is my father. So I do all the graphic design, the packaging, the brand strategy. So figuring out like who's great to partner with and, making the whole thing cohesive and look beautiful, as well as help with kind of the vision of Kribi Coffee and like where we're going. And yeah, I've had about 10 years experience in the creative industry. So I'm graphic designer, creative director, art director, and yeah, super excited to have everyone here, and I'll pass it on to Jacques.
Great. Thank you. My name is Jacques Shallow. I'm the CEO of Kribi Coffee Air Roastery, and we've been at this for quite some time, and we'll tell you more when I get into the presentation, and obviously you will learn a lot more with the many questions that I'm sure you've come with here today. But thank you all so very much for making time to come join us, to listen to our vision, and to ask any questions that you may have before you make this big decision of investing in us so we can go scale the company. So,
Awesome. Yeah. With that being said, Jacques, I know you have a presentation you'd like to present.
Yes, sure.
Feel free to go ahead and do that.
So I can share my screen. Can you see that?
No.
Okay, hold on. How's that?
Perfect. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, let me get it into full screen. Okay. So again, welcome. Thank you so much. Well, so let's get started. Now, there are really two fundamental problems that we solve here at Kribi Coffee. The first is at the farming sector, and then the second is actually in the roasting, which I'll come back to later. But let's first focus on the roasting. Now, you may not know, but 80% of the 12.5 million farms are farmed by small farm holders. These are single family own farms all across the world. Now, the challenges that they face are manifold, right? So the intense market competition, price volatility, climatic changes, all these different things create havoc for the small farmers. So we are taking an approach to solve this problem by working with 600 farmers in our home country of Cameroon. Now, we're purchasing from other places, but in Cameroon, we're focused on working with these farmers, of which about 20 are women farmers. So we believe that by working with these farmers directly and paying them slightly more than market price, we believe that we can introduce a much more sustainable way of empowering the farmers so that this process continues in a way that gives us better coffee into the future. Now, just to be clear and take a step back, the reason why we have this problem, we're very, very conscious about this problem, is because I was born in a coffee farm back in Cameroon in West Africa. My siblings and I help our parents cultivate, harvest, and distribute coffee to roasters all around the world. The coffee that is distributed in this state is actually called green coffee. That's just the industry term. So we distribute the green coffee, and that's how it gets into the hands of the roasters. So just to put it in context, when we say that farmers have been marginalized or not being empowered properly, if you look at the value chain of coffee, you can see that the farmers are only making about 11% in the value chain. The lion's share is in the hands of the roaster, right? So this is the group that's converting the raw material into the finished product. In other words, by applying heat to the coffee through the roasting process, you're transforming the product from a raw material into the finished aromatic product that you all are familiar with. Very complex product, coffee. There's about 200 chemical compound changes when you apply heat to coffee. So if you look at the value chain, we believe that in our vision, by participating in the entire value chain, from supporting the farmers, working with the companies for the logistics and getting the green coffee here, and then participating in this roasting process, we believe we can, through this value chain control, give more back to the farmers. So the second problem that we uncovered in the coffee was in this area of roasting. And so let me sort of talk about that a little bit more. Some of you may know that the prevailing method of roasting is through a system called a gas drum roasting. Without getting into the weeds, let me just give you a snapshot of what we believe the issues are around gas drum roasting. So imagine there's a big drum with the green coffee that comes from the farm that has a filament over the green coffee, right? So at 500 degrees, gas flame is conducting heat to this drum that's rolling around, and the green coffee is roasting in the drum. So the heat is being conducted from the drum to the beans. Now at 500 degrees, the bean is roasting and it expands. It pushes out this filament that becomes the byproduct of the roasting process. In this drum process, the byproduct stays in the drum during the roasting process. And because it's lighter in texture, it chars and burns faster than the coffee you're trying to roast. Now, at some point in the drum roasting, it can be separated, but that imparted taste, it will create the nastiness, we believe, in coffee, and the fact that people that are drinking coffee from this process put a lot of sugar, cream to sort of get away from this nasty taste. So this is what we believe is the first challenge in this process. The second challenge is the fact that most of the companies, in fact, just about all of the companies that use this method of roasting, roast in large quantities. So there's mass production in a central location. And when you do that, then you have to logistically package it, then transport it to the end users. Now, a scientific fact is that coffee technically is stale in 14 days. It gets oxidized and it doesn't taste as fresh as real fresh coffee is. So why produce coffee in a central location and you have to distribute it? By the time it gets to the consumers, it's not exactly fresh coffee, it's stale. So we've solved this problem through this air roasting process that I'm going to talk about a little bit. Back some 4 or 5 years ago, I discovered this technology. We acquired the company through another entity under my watch that owned the patent for this roasting process. And this process solves the two problems that I've identified in the gas drum roasting. So the first is that we're using forced hot air to convectionally heat the green coffee in a roast chamber. And as the bean expands at 500 degrees, the chaff comes off. We use a vortex technology on a cyclone to collect the chaff, because the chaff or the byproduct is floating higher and the bean is floating lower. So you end up with a clean convection taste with the byproduct exhausted out of the same environment as the bean that you're drinking. So you end up consuming a clean tasting coffee with convection heat that has been applied to it. So that's how we solve this problem, the first aspect of this problem. The second aspect is that if coffee is still in 14 days, and the green coffee that we distribute to the roasters can last 2, perhaps 3 years, depending on how you preserve it, why would you want to roast in a large quantity and then have to distribute it? So this air roasting process roasts 1 to 5 pounds in less than 10 minutes. So we keep the green coffee in the green state. We roast on demand, which means because we're using electricity, we can roast live at the point of consumption in a coffee shop or a grocery store or wherever you want to be able to distribute the coffee. So without getting too long-winded, that's how we're solving this problem with our air roasting process: small batch roasting and using electricity and applying convection heat directly to the coffee. So what I've just explained to you, it's a mouthful. And I apologize to have to get into the weeds a little bit that way, but you needed to understand the basics for how we're roasting. What I've described to you, basically, we were fortunate to be introduced to one of the original founders of Starbucks, Zev Siegel. Zev said to me, as he became an advisor to our company, you need to stop talking about the technology. Nobody cares about the technology. You need to get into the coffee shop business. You need consumers to taste the coffee and they can tell you the difference, and then you can go from there. So that's exactly what we did. We acquired an underperforming coffee shop in Forest Park, Illinois, back in 2019. The shop was doing about $9,000 in revenue every month. We basically put a roaster in. Jeremiah rebranded. We created a completely different perspective to coffee in the community. You would come in the store. So our value proposition was you'd come in the store. If you had 7 minutes, you would actually dispense the green coffee, hand it to the barista, and they would roast it live in front of you. So the mushrooming or the levitating of these beans is mesmerizing. It's an experiential play. The smell is to die for. And then eventually when you taste that clean taste, it's distinct. So that was our value proposition. We serve different things, different types of coffee, but that was the core value proposition. Today, that store is doing $60,000 a month in revenue. So that's what we did to get the word out. We've been very, very, very fortunate that this community that we're in, Forest Park, Oak Park, and River Forest, have been extremely, extremely supportive of our concept, and they've embraced us, and we're very, very appreciative for that. So that's what we did. Now, just to take a step back and sort of recap the market that we're in. It's a massive market. Coffee is obviously one of the most consumed beverage in the world. But the market that we're playing in, that we're actually in, is the serviceable obtainable market, which is about 118 billion of specialty coffee, which is actually consumed. 44% of it is consumed by millennials that represent 27% of the population in the US. Now, just again to recap, our value proposition is working directly with farmers, organizing the value chain so we can pay them more, and then using an eco-friendly process to roast the coffee. So here's our business model. We started out with the coffee shop. We've built a loyal following. We went from one shop, and now we've got a second one here in Oak Park, and a third one that will be announced that we just took over this past week. We'll be announcing that the next few weeks. We've gone into an e-commerce where we're actually roasting live and shipping out to our customers. We have an app. And what was fascinating is that we had many entrepreneurs that own other coffee shops and or upscale restaurants that would come into the coffee shop, taste the coffee, and really get very excited about the taste and approached us to roast for their establishment. So we've built a very loyal following in a wholesale business that represented about just over 1/3 of our revenue in 2021. So just to put it in context, our revenue for 2021 was 1.1 million. We are at a run rate estimated at 1.4 for 2022. We're just completing our financials, so we'll know that number, but the estimate right now is 1.4. So you've met some of the members of the team. Most notable, two that are not on this presentation is Amir, who has lots of experience in the coffee business, trained in Italy around espresso drinks, and Kyle, who is actually managing our farm project back in Cameroon. So make no mistake, we understand the market we're playing into. It's a massive market, as you could see earlier, but we know it's crowded. There are lots of big players, and we are very, very, we're very conscious of the fact that there's some big players and it's very competitive. But we believe that with the two value proposition that I've sort of stated in our business model, we can differentiate ourselves in the top right quadrant as an original company and a small boutique perspective that we can build into the future, and with some capital, we can scale this quite nicely. So with that, I'm gonna just pause and see if there's anything else, Khalil, that you want to add. But otherwise, I've got a clip of a video that is going to be a couple of minutes that I'd like to sort of play for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack, and go ahead and play that video.
Great, thanks.
I need to share the video. You are not sharing the video.
I'm sorry. What?
We can't see your screen.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that. How's that? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to start over?
My apologies. Okay, so that was it. So I'll turn it over to you, Khalil.
Awesome.
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen then? So you have
yeah,
okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Cool. And right now we want to open the floor to any questions that anyone in the audience has. But before we do that, anyone on the team has anything they wanted to add before we went in for questions?
Not that I can think of. Kirby, did you have any?
No, I think, yeah, we can answer some questions, and then we can talk a little bit about our 2023 plans as well.
Yeah, and that was gonna be my first question. We can recap how 2022 went, and what are some goals and roadmap for 2023.
Yeah, so 2022 was an amazing year, challenging year coming out of the pandemic, with lots of expectations, but a very difficult year. We've been very fortunate prior years into 2022. The growth continued. We went from the one store in Forest Park. We launched 2.5 months ago. We launched the second location in Oak Park. The sales day is exceeding our expectation. We're really, really excited about that. And 2023 is starting out with a big bang. Our wholesale is coming along quite nicely. And as I mentioned earlier, we've taken over a location here in Oak Park that we'll be announcing shortly and rebranding. So we now have 3 locations. And we continue to expand, and with some capital, we see our wholesale business doing quite well in 2023. So anything else to add, Kirby? Perhaps you might want to add how we put together the franchise operation.
Yeah. So in addition to, again, us expanding our retail shops and wholesale, we also will begin to start offering franchises here by the end of Q1. So as I mentioned in my introduction, part of the reason why I was brought onto the team was to work with a franchising consultant firm that has helped us really get all of the regulatory paperwork, things together, finances, all of that together, so that we can offer that as an option for our for customers, investors, anyone that really wants to stand behind our concept. So so if there's any specific questions that you guys have about franchising, pop them in the chat, and we can answer them.
Awesome. I do have some questions coming in. The first one is, if the gas drum method has many negative traits, including being expensive and inefficient, why are competitors not switching to electric air roasting? You mentioned you own the patent on the electric process. Are there gains made by potentially licensing your patent? And is that the barrier for the competitors?
Wow, lots of good questions. So let's go back to the first portion of it. Why are the drum roasters, with the issues that we've identified, in our humble opinion, why aren't they also doing air roasting? And then I believe the second portion of the question is the patent. And so when I uncovered this process 6 years ago, I asked myself the same question. I did the research and found out that this technology had been invented by a guy called Michael Sivets, who was the single well-known technologist that advised most of the coffee companies around temperature of roast using the drum method. He is the one that identified the issues around this method, some of which I've described to you, and he invented the air roasting process. So I did not invent that. Okay, so and as I researched even more, I found out that there's many companies, including Whole Foods, Safeway in California, Wegmans, big grocery chain companies that had identified this difference in an eco-friendly process of roasting small batch at the point of consumption. So these companies bought these roasters. About 480 of these roasters were produced prior to my watch. And the technology has been around for a long time. Why are the drum roasters not getting to this? Well, I in my humble opinion, I believe this is not dissimilar to what happened in the telephone market. You know, the cell technology was around for a long time, but yet the big phone companies kept pushing the POTS line, right? It just took a few entrepreneurial companies to step forward to innovate and make that change. I believe that that's what we're doing here. We've since uncovered and talked to many people, and this is the point that Zev is founder of Starbucks. It took him a year to respond to us, and when he finally responded, he said he'd been researching this topic because he did not know anything about air roasting. So he needed to research it on his own and taste the coffee to see the difference. So why are they not doing it? Why are the drum roasters not doing it? I believe that there's an issue of efficiency, perceived efficiency in mass production and then distribution, like any other big mass production process in the past. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that, you know, if they perceive that it's not broken, why fix it? When I found this company and did my research, they were actually selling the company because the original patent had run out. This was in 2016. I worked with the founders of this technology who had acquired the patent from Michael and to build small batch roasters. And on my watch, we filed a new patent, changed the profile and a bunch of utility, and filed a new patent. And it was held under Java Master International LLC, the company that I founded. So the patent was issued July 16th of 2016, and it remains in place. The second portion of your question is, could this technology be sold to others? Absolutely. So there are two entities here. The patent is held by the first company that I acquired, that I founded, Java Master International LLC. And that company is actually selling the roasters out there in the market. We as Kribi Coffee has an exclusive to exploit this technology in the central region. But anybody can buy the technology today. So that entity is exploiting this small batch roasting of air roasters in the marketplace. Sorry to explain it in a long-winded way, but I didn't see any other way to position it so you understand it.
Yeah, no worries. And then I guess this is kind of a follow-up question is, you know, is your air roaster equipment patented, and do you have control over the manufacturing of these roasters?
It's patented, but the patent is actually, just to be clear again, is held by Java Master International, which I founded. That entity is selling the technology, and we believe that like any other technology, the patent is only as good as your ability to exploit it, right? I mean, the intellectual property doesn't do you any good if you're not bringing the technology to the market. And this is the point that Zev was making to me, which is you need to deploy the roasters in a way that is front and center so customers can visualize and also taste the coffee. And that, to us, is the best way to exploit the technology into the market.
Yeah. And this question is for Abby. Labor is tight in every sector of the economy. How does finding experienced labor affect the growth of the retail side of business?
Yeah, so the very cool thing about Kribi Coffee, and I find with my experience in coffee shops altogether, is that it is pretty simple to teach people how to make a really good cup of coffee, and even easier to teach people how to roast air roasted coffee. like kind of Jacques, how he explained the intricacies and the complications of roasting with a drum roaster. You need somebody to constantly maintain and watch it. With our air roasting technology, especially in our retail stores, we're able to just kind of click 2 buttons and then kind of go back to what we're doing. So in terms of finding experienced labor, that isn't technically a priority for us. We're able to really teach and tell everybody how to do it. The people that we look for in hiring are people that match and like want to help grow our mission and grow what we stand for. And finding that within the community is actually very simple for us. We haven't really run into any major issues with that. We work with local high schools to help get high schoolers some work experience in their resume, especially before they head off to college. We work with other local organizations to help people get jobs. And honestly, people really like to work for Kribi Coffee, so we get a lot of great references coming in that way. To answer your question in a very long-winded way, we haven't really run into many issues with hiring yet. Knock on wood.
If I may add a point to that, as to labor cost too, is that, and this is part of the secret of what we're doing, but I'll share it with you. So labor is tight and it's expensive. So in a typical traditional coffee shop, it's busy from about 6, 7 in the morning till about 1, and then it tapers off, right? So if you have the staff that you're paying and there's not enough business coming in the afternoon, that's tight. That's challenging, because you still got to pay them because somebody's got to be there. At Kribi Coffee, our value proposition is this: between 6 and 1 is busy. We see it busier after some days, but because of the simplicity of the roasting process, they are roasting. It goes on the shelf for the next day, or they're roasting for small wholesale, but we're utilizing the labor force all the time, and they enjoy doing it because it's a simple process. They're learning something new. So that's partially why we have not had any issues in labor. In fact, it's a lot of fun. At least that's what we hear from most of our staff.
We got to be pretty vague with how we answer this question. How many streams of income do you currently have within your company, and what sets you apart from a regular coffee shop?
As vague as I can be, we have many streams. The core is we've got the green coffee that we're managing. We are obviously roasting the coffee, so we can sell the coffee in 12-ounce bags. We can sell wholesale to other businesses. We're making the finished cup, so you could come in and we compete with Starbucks down the street. How many exact income stream? Well, I would temper that with the cautiousness of what Khalil has mentioned. You know, there's some things that we can't really disclose or talk too much of in a public forum like this. But you know, you take a look at what we're doing. We're controlling the value chain from the farm all the way to the finished cup. We are participating in different aspects of the value chain enough to have several income streams.
Yeah. And one thing I would add to kind of, again, speak to what makes us different is outside of a regular coffee shop who, you know, you get the income from customers buying the beverages, the food, like Jacques has alluded to and talked about a little bit, is we also have the wholesale aspect that that the stores and the shops can play into. So we have, like you mentioned, a couple of other coffee shops in the area, local restaurants, hotels, things like that, that we actually roast for. And that's another way that at our particular coffee shops, another income stream that can be made.
Yeah. And the way we because we roast in a small batch and we can scale that and iterate quickly, we're able to offer private label and white label to many companies that otherwise could not be looked at by a large drum roaster because it's just not economically possible. We've used this approach to create a way to support the community with some social impact models that we believe is beyond just the profit of what we're doing, right? So we are working with a middle school to help promote the PTA. We sell the coffee for X, we donate X. We created a Black Lives Matter blend, which we can iterate real quickly and roast only small batches. But then as it's increased where people are buying it at scale, we're contributing a portion to that to Tutoring Chicago, that's tutoring kids in the West Side and poor neighborhoods. So, you know, we have a lot of flexibility in what we're doing. That's sort of part of the core differentiating aspect of what we're doing versus a large drum roaster.
Right. And then Jeremiah, this is for you. Have you tapped into the marketing around the clean energy aspect of the electric roasters opposed to gas-filled roasters? Is this a legitimate marketing angle to consider?
Yeah, so this is 100% a legitimate marketing angle to consider. So throughout like the past couple of years, we've been kind of getting our foot in the ground and haven't been doing as much marketing. A lot of like the customers, even from like wholesale to people walking in for cups of coffee, have been from word of mouth, which has been really unique. And that's, we scaled a lot without like that much marketing. But the eco-friendly nature of how we are roasting is 100% going to be one of the large factors in our future marketing campaigns. Like this year, we're going to scale up marketing and like attack the different problems on how we're making social change. We are using this new technology that is way better than gas roasting, gas-powered roasting, and then just countless things like that. But yes, it's definitely on our list for.
And to add to that too, rather than talk about it a lot more in marketing, we're actually we've tested taking actions around the eco-friendliness of what we're doing, right? So the byproduct, our chaff, or the byproduct that comes off, we're actually packaging that in small packages and giving that out to our customers because you can use it as a fertilizer, you can use it for your garden. So rather than be talking about eco-friendly, we're actually giving this out, customers are using it and coming back and it's flying off the shelf. We're giving it away for free. It's always out there, but it's gone by the end of the day. So at some point, yes, with some capital, we can begin to look at this and tell the story a little bit more poignantly than I think we are at this stage, but it's going to require some capital.
Awesome. And Kribi, this is for you. You know, if investors want to be interested in becoming a franchisee, what would that process / next step look like?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we're in the process of finishing everything. So that should be up and running by the end of this quarter. Ultimately, all you'd have to do is go to our website, so kribicoffee.com, and there's going to be a page where that will lead you to our franchising landing page. And you would just fill out an interest form. So the landing page will give you a lot of this overall information about the program, kind of walk you through the steps. I think it's like 9 steps, which you know, very, very easy steps as far as just understanding the process, putting in a form. We'll do a training portion where you actually work with not only myself, but also Abby and a couple of our store managers to learn the overall operations. But yeah, it's super easy as far as like just getting more information and getting the interest in. And then, like I said, it'll just be us kind of vetting and walking through that as we once we get it launched.
Awesome. And Bill, I do want to quickly answer your question here around, you know, why we have to be vague on certain topics of the webinar. And it's due to the SEC guidelines. The SEC wants to make sure that, you know, everyone is getting the same information that's being stated. So that's why I do recommend checking out the Start Engine page. It has all that information there. Just, you know, due this being a live event, the SEC just wants to make sure everyone has the same exact information. That's why we do direct everyone to visit the Start Engine page.
Yeah, thanks, Khalil. And I want to underscore, because this was new to me, when we started this process of crowdfunding, sounds like great. there's a lot of regulatory requirements around what we, in order to be able to do what we're doing in offering shares in the company to the public. And it is not, I mean, it is serious. So we are taking it serious as well, because these are SEC guidelines for how we bring this to market. But like Khalida said, a lot of the details are actually in the portal. Encourage you to take a look at it.
Yeah, and I added the link here in the chat box. So if you guys need that link, it's there in the chat. And this webinar is also being recorded, so we will be putting it up on the Raise page, post event. So if you wanted to go back and learn more or rewatch this webinar, you definitely will have that ability to. All right, let's see what else we have here. Do you currently have any other coffee shops utilizing your technology?
Yes. So besides our 3 coffee shops, as I pointed out, this technology had been around before. The company that I acquired it for was called Gourmet Coffee Roasters. They'd actually built 480 of these roasters, Whole Foods at their store. In fact, the Lincoln Park store on Kingsbury here in Chicago has one that was built 13 years ago. It's you walk in the men's area, they have a big coffee bar, it's in there. There's a couple of coffee shops in California, in Chicago. During my watch at Java Master, I installed one in Chicago on, this one in Chicago that is operated by a friend that has a coffee shop there. There's a few sprinkled in the North Carolina area, but that's just about it.
And again, this question is, talking about future projections, kind of have to be vague around it, but how many corporate stores will there be envisioned as opposed to the franchise stores? Kribi how many corporate stores will there be envisioned as opposed to the franchise stores Kribi will be focusing on? How does this play out over the next 5 years for planning purposes?
Good question. And I think it's not a forward thinking, this is specific plans of what we have. Our goal was to have 5 corporately owned stores in the Chicago area. We're a small company. We have modest capital. We're looking to get more capital from you guys so we can execute on this plan. But corporate owned stores can be very capital intensive. So our plan was 5 stores. We've got 3 right now. We see 2 strategically placed in the Chicagoland area, close to home, so we can control and manage the process and keep our costs down. Because it's capital intensive, our vision, and this may change, and this is where the forward thinking might have to change, and I can't lock that, but we may end up with a few other strategic corporate owned stores, but it'll be driven by cash flow and it'll be driven by opportunistic locations that make a lot of sense. Beyond that, we believe the way to scale the retail portion is through franchising.
Awesome. And do you have any notable partnerships that you can point to, that you feel like will take Kribi to the next level?
Known partnerships, there are a couple of names that we can't throw out again because it's too forward thinking, but there's some large big box. But what I can point out is what we've actually done today. We are in, and I'm just now reviewing how we go forward, but the last 6 months, 7 months, we've been in 15 grocery stores in the Chicagoland area by 2 companies, Caputo's and Sunset Foods. We're in there today. We've been doing this and we're now reevaluating if we continue to do this and what are the costs associated with it and how do we manage it going forward. We've talked to many big box companies that like our story, like the approach that we're taking, and want to have us supply and work with them. There are some facility requirements, part of which we're raising capital to address before we can actually get to that. But we know the demand, we know the interest is there for several big box opportunities.
And is Java Masters profitable as a standalone company? Are the funds commingled between Kribi and Java Masters?
So again, there are two separate entities. Java Master International as a company is just barely profitable, and it's operated by a different group of individuals. I sold the majority of my ownership to them because I wanted to focus on Kribi Coffee. One of the advice that I got from Zev was, look, the technology is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the puzzle. And Kribi Coffee is the vision. So that's why I took my attention off that and have been the last 2.5 years. You can tell it's, with this attention and the team, we're growing significantly more. But Java Master is barely still profitable, but nothing to write home about. I never saw it that way, and I don't think that it's a technology. And if you can bring it to the market, service it, and tell the story, perhaps it could be even more profitable. But at this stage, our focus is in utilizing the technology to deliver coffee and disrupt the market, if I can put it that way.
And we have a question here from Richard. It's please clarify what the focus is for the investments, more company-owned stores, more wholesale sales, or franchising. Again, we can't talk about use of proceeds, but it is listed out in the raise page. So please.
Yeah, it's very detailedly listed out there. But generally speaking, I mean, you've pointed out some of the questions has been around marketing. We've got to tell this story. I mean, it's a fantastic story, but if we don't have a way to deliver the message, it's no good to anybody. So we are putting some capital in that. As I mentioned before, corporate-owned stores are very capital intensive, so we're containing that. We've put some money in the consulting practice of understanding how we do the franchise. So, we're being very, very measured in the approach. It's a big concept, but we're still a small company. So we have to be very measured in how we manage it. And so we're being careful with how we manage the funds that we're going to be getting. But marketing is a primary area that we'll be putting funds into.
Awesome. We have a question here saying, I would like to speak to friends and family regarding investing in this amazing opportunity. Is there a presentation/video that provides a synopsis that I can provide to potential investors?
Yes, the portal has a lot of information, but if you reach out to me, Jacques at kribicoffee.com, I can share with you different versions of what we already have on that portal, so that we're not sharing something with you that we're not sharing with everybody. It's just a different version that is probably more adopted for you to be able to deliver the message to your own audience without too much complexity. So I'd be happy to share that with you. So if you reach out to me by email, again, Jacques at kribicoffee.com, I'd be happy to share a PDF with you.
Awesome.
Anthony, I'd also say that this webinar, the recording is going to be put on the Start Engine page as well. So you can also show them this presentation where Jacques did go through everything and give some explanation as well.
Awesome. And then one last question that I see here is, what was Kribi's biggest challenge in 2022 and how did the company overcome it?
Capital. Every small company, we got big ideas. You need the capital to get to those big ideas. We've been very fortunate. We have some friends that have been there for us with capital to address our growth, to tell our story to where we are right now. But that's been a primary challenge. And make no mistake, as a minority company, the market is not exactly plentiful for capital for us. So That's been a challenge, make no mistake, but we've overcome it and we continue to overcome it. And with your help, we will be able to be successful. Yeah, so that's the biggest challenge. And then, you know, what would have been thought to be a big challenge, which Abby pointed out, labor, we've been fortunate. So that's not been an issue, but I would say that's been a big challenge. And then the other challenge has been working with the farmers, not so much of a challenge, but something that we've been very, very purposeful about. The logistics of doing that in some challenging areas back in the home country, that was a challenge. And there's some places that we can't just go to because there's some political strife, but we overcame that because we have good relationships on ground in those places. I don't think there have been any major other challenges that we've faced, guys. Any?
No, I think you hit it on the head.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I don't see any other questions coming in. We can go into final, remarks. Is there anything you guys wanted to add before we wrapped up here today?
It's very simple. The last time somebody asked the question, if I'm sitting on the fence, what is that final thing that you can tell me that will allow me to jump on your side of the fence? It's still the same. We have got a fascinating story from farm all the way to cup. We are socially impacting the farmers. By managing the entire value chain, we have many ways to make money. And frankly speaking, taste the coffee. Don't take my word for it. That's how we started this concept, and that's where we are. And join us, invest in us, so we can scale this concept. It's a big opportunity. We're a small company. We can only get to that through the capital. So please invest in us.
Awesome. Again, I want to reiterate that this webinar has been recorded, so we will be posting a whole recap video around it. And stay up to date with Kribi Coffee. Go on the Start Engine page, click that heart on the top right-hand corner. This campaign isn't going to be open forever, so get in now before it's too late. And stay up to date with with everything that they're doing there. Awesome. Well, I do want to thank the panelists and everyone who attended the webinar today. And again, Happy New Year, and hope to see everyone on the next one.
Great. Thanks, Khalil. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Appreciate it. Invest today.